EFI University is hosting a new class called Essentials of Operating a Shop. If you are interested in learning how to run your shop more efficiently, this class is for you. The first class is in Portland, Oregon on February 6th, followed by San Jose, California on March 5th. For details, go to EFI101.com and look for the Essentials of Operating a Shop class. Be sure to use the coupon code DIFAL for $50 off.
This is Do It for a Living, your source for inside information on the future of automotive performance.
Every single time, whenever there's a picture of the pistons or the block, you're tagging, JE Pistons. You're tagging Fuel and Jet Clinic. You're tagging each one of these people to make sure that they understand that you appreciate what they're giving to you.
What's holding you back from starting or growing your business into what it can be? Well, if you're listening to this, it's not a lack of information. What you're about to hear is all you need to get motivated and start making waves. Do It for a Living podcast details the journey of today's true players in their own words. Find out how they broke out so you can too. The time is now. The time is always now.
I'm here with Mark Jager from Jager Racing. Mark is a privateer in the time attack scene on the West Coast. You may have seen him in Super Lap Battle. He's also been featured in the latest calendar for D Sport magazine. He's the model for the March month. Mark, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Okay. You've kind of heard this before. We want to kind of get a background of yourself in your racing. You're not necessarily a business. You are primarily a racing team, and it's primarily yourself. So go ahead and tell us about yourself. How did you get started? What's your background? Take us back to when you were a kid. All
right. Well, obviously, when I was a kid, I was like probably a lot of other car guys, interested in cars, interested in go-karts. Go to an amusement park. First thing you want to go to is you want to go to a go-kart and, tear it up with your friends and get that, camaraderie and all that other fun stuff, competition aspect in you. As I grew up, I live in the Antelope Valley, and oddly, even though I only live 5 minutes away from Willow Springs, I took up the sport of drag racing. Probably, if I had to take a stab in the dark, it's probably because at the time the import drag racing scene was really coming up, with LACR only being like 30 minutes away. It was just something that I could easily do. And obviously, when you're a kid and you're just coming into cars, I don't want to say the easiest thing, but drag racing, in essence, is something that anybody can do at any given time with any cart they have. So it was just something I kind of jumped into, started drag racing. I had a 91 Honda Civic, did some drag racing with that for a while, had some fun, turboed it, blew it up a bunch of times, decided that Hondas need to stay NA and get away from turbos. So I went back NA, and then they closed LACR down, and that kind of put me in a slump of, I need my speed fix, but where am I going to get it? So my girlfriend at the time, fiance, Rachel, she ended up getting me a instruction day at Willow Springs at their course that they have there at Willow Springs, and went there, did that, loved it, instantly fell in love with it. Within a month, I was going back out there in my own car, because I was, one of those people that, I don't want to take my car out there, I don't want to mess that up. So I rented one of their Celicas at the time. So after getting a taste of it, I put the blue tape on the car, to prevent any damage, and went out to the track and threw my hat in the ring. Found out really quickly, for as much as I wanted to spend on the track, I was going to spend a lot of money. Because at that time the prices per track day had actually gone up to some extent. So I eventually hooked up with Extreme Speed after doing a bunch of track days. Started doing track days with them, hooked up with Extreme Speed, and started working for them basically. To begin with, it was like I was their laundry boy. What do you need? I'll do it. Take out the trash? I'll do it. You need me to stand at the counter? I'll do anything you need.
Is Extreme Speed a shop, or is that a track organization?
They're a track day organization.
Okay, an event coordinators.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I basically worked for them, doing whatever I could, and then finally, as time progressed and getting a little bit more track time, I progressed into their instructor position, and then I was just able to instruct and be at the track even more. I think it was 2012, I think I did 64 track days in that year.
Wow, okay.
So, and everyone always talks about Subarus being glass engines and all. I did 64 track days on a Stage 2 STI. So, did as many track days as I possibly could. At the same time, because of how that worked out, I was still a junior instructor, so I was still having the senior instructors get in the car with me at any chance that I possibly could get. So in my case, to me, I got the best of every world because I was working, so in essence, getting track days, and then at the same time getting instruction, and at the same time instructing others. And just like anything, whenever you actually have to explain something to another person, that just is reinforcing everything about what you're saying and doing to yourself, so you're actually having to think about it and go through the process. So to me, it made me a better driver because I had to explain what I knew or what I thought I knew to someone else so that they could attempt to do it. And so in having to make that explanation, it definitely made a huge difference.
Practice what you preach, right?
Exactly. And it was great. It was a great experience. I love going on the track with those guys. It really helped. It really helped me as well because, the track days, track day organizers and all the other stuff, people think that it's just random guys showing up every weekend, and you literally have probably 40% of the same people every time. So you go to I can go to the track any given Saturday, any given Sunday, and I know half the people there. And to me, that's a great feeling. It's a very family type feeling to have, that you can go to the track and the people, you can help them, you have helped them, or anything of that nature.
Yeah.
So and basically from there, when Extreme Speed ended up buying Redline back, basically Chris Willard bought Redline back, and started that franchise back up. It started getting me thinking about Time Attack. And then I actually attended my very first actual Time Attack event was 2012 Super Lap Battle.
Okay, that was I actually was at that event too. 2012. I was at that event as well, watching, and we were actually competing, but our car had problems, so we got one hot lap and the car overheated. So
it was great. I mean, I'm sitting here in my office here, and I'm looking at the magazine that it was in, and I oddly, in my 2006 Subaru, with at the time I only had lowering springs, sway bars, and basically Stage 2 power. I went and ran it, and I ended up in the front row of the picture that was in the magazine. So, you can't really argue with that too much. And I had tons of fun. And another thing that, I had a rotor crack at the event, and, I'm just a little privateer guy. I just do track events. I'm thinking, okay, my day's done. A good friend of mine, Joe from Eastside Muffler, he hits me up and he's like, dude, just go ask some people in the paddock. He's like, there's got to be another guy with a rotor. I walk around the paddock for 5 minutes. Some guy's like, oh yeah, sure. Didn't even say like you can buy a rotor. You can have these rotors. Just take them off my car, and you can have them. So I took him off his car, went and put him on my car, and then finished the day out.
Nice.
So stuff like that. The camaraderie within the Time Attack community. It's a great organization and group to hang out with and be with. So,
and for people who aren't familiar with Super Lap Battle, it's a Global Time Attack puts it on, and they have, I think they have 4 classes now, but at the time it was Street Class, Limited Class, and Unlimited Class. And
correct.
All of the classes are pretty loosely ruled. I would say you can bring in a 700 horsepower car into the street class, and it's still okay. And so you were running street class in 2012 then with your mostly stock STI, right?
Correct. And at that time, it was awesome. I mean, I think Bucky Lasek ran in street class that year. I know, Professional Awesome and a bunch of other guys that have been there for years and years and years. I think that year is the year, I think Rado was still out there. Yeah, Rado was still out there that year, and same with the FXMD guys. So, I mean, there was some big-time players still in the game and running around there at that time. So, it still is, and it's by far, it's the time attack mecca. You think of the biggest event of the year in time attack, and that, it without a doubt, is Super Lap Battle.
Yeah. So that kind of brings us into the next step. So you kind of brought this kind of hobby into you're treating it like a business, essentially, is how I view it. You're probably one of the most professional amateur racers that I have ever seen in time attack, and so kind of tell us, how do you think of yourself as an entrepreneur? Do you kind of treat this as a business, or is it still a hobby to you?
Absolutely. I treat it as a business, to be honest with you. People, I look at some of the guys that I'm competing against, or with, or whatever you want to call it, and it is a hobby, and it is something, but I know that for me, it's much, much more. I mean, people think, I love the people that go walk around, oh, it must be nice, or oh, you have sponsors, it's all easy. Well, no, that's not the case at all. That's actually, having sponsors can actually be a huge detriment. I will say in 2015, I've never felt as much stress as when I was actually racing. I mean, my car, in 2015, I did one event, whereas in 2013 and 2014, I did 12 events. So, if that kind of brings a little bit of understanding to that, not running events was actually more stressful, because you actually have these commitments, whether the commitments just be verbal or contractual. It's just a commitment that you make. And to me, I'll be honest, whether it be a contract, or whether it be a handshake, or whether it be over the phone and we just agreed upon something, those are all one and the same. If you cannot go with your word, if you can't be that person that you say you can be, then, to be honest, the companies that are going to sponsor you they'll do it once, they won't do it again. And as much as we all like to think that the automotive community is this huge community, it's tiny. Every marketing person talks to other marketing people, and you can really hose over one guy, and guess what? You go to sign your next deal. Well, man, I heard that this guy really screwed over the last company he was with, so why would we deal with them? And that's kind of the way that I take it. It is a business, absolutely. I mean, I'll be honest, time attack is not where I see the end of what I want to do in racing. I absolutely, one of my dreams is to go race in like the Continental Series or the IMSA Series or something like that.
Okay.
That is absolutely where I would love to end up. Watching that series is just amazing. But it does take time. I'm not one of those people who thinks that you instantly deserve something. I absolutely believe that you have to work at everything. So that's just kind of the approach that I take to everything. Is I need to be able to prove myself. I need to be able to work it. I need to work harder than the next person. I need to be able to do it better than the next person. And I think with that approach, I can have success. I can say that I've had pretty good success so far, and I can say that yes, between partnerships with Gimme Sport, Borg Warner, and Full Race, and this year in 2015 when we jumped on board with Lost Art Liquids, it's just having these companies and dealing with them on a daily, weekly basis. Actually, one of my absolute favorite things, going to SEMA or just calling the sponsors and saying that and hearing them say, we are absolutely thrilled to have you as someone that we sponsor. It's something that we, really look forward to every time. That's something to me that actually means much more than anything else. If you can't keep them happy, then you're not going to be with them very much longer.
So you said you're calling your sponsors and talking to them, once a week or more. You obviously have probably a full-time job, and racing is on the side, right? How much time are you spending devoted to your team?
Devoted to the team. In 2015, we were spending, and this is the entire team, every person on this team, you're talking about from June, we worked every Saturday and Sunday on the car on the weekends. The owner of Yemi Sport, Paul Lung, he spent numerous weekdays after hours working on the car, because at the end of the day, this isn't a paid project for him. He's sponsoring the car, so he's building the car. So if he works on it during, regular hours, you're talking about something, he's not making any money. It's a business. He's got to make his money, and that is kind of part of the downfall there, is because you as a sponsored vehicle do take the back seat to paying customers.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I know how that goes because I'm always the one having to build them.
Exactly. And that's something that if you don't understand going into it, you're going to fail, because it's very hard not to get frustrated at that fact. But if you can actually sit back and realize, okay, if he doesn't make any money, the business doesn't profit, then guess what? Then the car doesn't get built anyways because he goes out of business. So you really always have to be looking at both sides of the fence. It might be good for you to get something free from X company, but if X company, if they're not doing well and they're giving away free product, how is that helping them as a company stay afloat? Especially, when I first started, my very first sponsor of all time, APR Performance. Very small guy. He basically he drop ships stuff. Great guy. Nice guy. He gave me my first shot. But I will say, it's just like anything, if I ask a guy who is working for himself, by himself, and he's got to support himself, and then I'm turning around asking him for $20,000, how does that make any sense? It's not feasibly possible. So you have to understand the company in which you are going after for a sponsorship to understand what you're actually asking for. So things like that. But the amount of time that we actually spent per week, it could range, obviously, but we were working at the shop for at least 12 hours every Saturday and Sunday. Like I said, Paul's putting in numerous hours, and I was having to I won't lie, I was having to smooth over stuff with sponsors, because at the end of the day, they're saying, okay, we gave you product, we gave you work, we gave you this, why isn't the car racing? Mm-hmm. Why aren't you producing for us? Because at the end of the day, whether the sponsor is looking for a race win, coverage, or just any picture, it's all coming down to, what you're doing for them. For what I did in my time where I couldn't do anything. We were trapped. We were waiting for this. We were waiting. We played so many waiting games with so many different things. And that's car life in a nutshell, isn't it, right there? Yeah. It's like, so, but literally it was, okay, we're waiting for the fuel system piece because we went to a fuel cell, but we didn't decide we were going to go to a fuel cell till March. And so then it was like, oh man, then we had to design it with Pyrotech and then get it in, and then we had to go back to Aeromotive and, get the right fuel system and run new lines on the car and take all, so it's like we would jump ahead and then we'd pull ourselves back, because as we moved up a class in time attack, we were trying to be as competitive as possible, and without a doubt, it's something that's very hard to do.
Yeah.
So To say it easily, I don't know. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head, but without a doubt, I would probably say between 20 and 40 hours a week that I'm spending on the car stuff, without a doubt. And at one time, I would easily say it was 60 hours a week.
So you're spending almost full-time time on a team of your own car, one car.
Yeah. I mean, there was a time where I would get off work after 8 hours. I would come home and be on the phone trying to gain sponsorship or trying to communicate or just anything in general until 6 to 8 o'clock at night.
Yeah. So,
and
so this year was kind of rough for you then, having to change or not change platforms, but change classes. And so you spent a lot of time and didn't get a lot of racing. So did you ever doubt yourself when you're doing this? Like, how do you overcome like the doubt of not actually racing and having to, like talk to these sponsors and tell them you're not ready yet?
Well, there was no doubt. It was, for me, for me it was frustration. It was, I want to race. Luckily for me, I have some really good friends who were still tracking their cars, they were still running their cars, so they were nice enough to let me hop in the seat and get some driving time in. But at the same time, toward the end of the year, when we were working on the car every Saturday and Sunday, there was no time to go to the track and just get drive time. So actually going into Super Lap, I don't think I drove for 6 months.
So quite a while.
Which is terrible for a driver.
Yeah.
To not drive for 6 months and then to jump into a car. And just to give you an idea, we did 3 hot laps in 2 days at Super Lap Battle.
That is racing.
I mean, not to say we had enormous amounts of problems. Other people had greater problems. But we had our fair share. And obviously you're talking about a car we spent – the last time the car ran – on track was last year's Super Lap Battle. A full year goes by. Now we're in this year's Super Lap Battle, and we get there with a car that's never been on track before. Ever. So it's like, okay, suspension settings, how are they? Aero settings, how are they? We had a brand new suspension. We had a brand new aero. I mean, everything is new on the car. Everything is breaking in or tweaking or doing its thing. And we had some very, very interesting problems, and the team had to come up with very innovative ways to fix those problems and how to do it very quickly. Luckily, we were able to lay down a good lap, but I will say, at the same time, the last lap that we did, we also killed the engine on the last lap that we did. So
So this kind of leads us perfectly into the next question: is explain the worst experience you've had in your racing career. Is this getting close to it?
Yeah, I would say yes, just because the amount of time and effort that we put into the car all year. We love the professional awesome guys. We got talk with them. They help us. They were helping us build the car. Giving us advice, and we were chatting with ideas and stuff like that back and forth. But we wanted to give them a battle. We wanted to really push them to go faster as well. I know they had their fair share of issues as well. But we really didn't put the time down that we were hoping to, and just little silly stuff. If you watch my my video from Super Lap Battle, you'll notice, the tires, they're smoking when I'm under braking because it's locking up. Well, the reason why it's locking up is because that was on my first hot lap, and I found out in my first hot lap that ABS didn't work anymore. So, okay, well, we found that out in the first hot, because the first one I'm like, well, that was kind of weird, and then go a little bit further, no, we just don't have ABS anymore. That is completely gone. So that's another thing to have to adapt to. And so, little things, but yeah, it was a rough year. It was absolutely a rough year for us. Like I said, the only thing I could really do to kind of continue on with making sponsors happy is what I did. And that's simply, we were building the car. So it was an ample time to, why not every time we could put a part in, expose it, show it off. We got a brand new set of Dreadnought 2 coilovers from Fortunato. I'm gonna expose them as much as possible because I'd love to. I would much rather be on the track, winning races and setting lap records, and saying, "Look what Fortunato's coilovers did for me." But without that capability, all I can really do is show them off and give people an idea of how they mount and how they work and what their capabilities are in that sense. Same with, I was really excited about my OS Geiken front and rear diffs. Really excited about them, actually. And it's kind of one of those great and terrible products because it's something you put in and you can't showcase it. It's like, I have a diff. I put it into an enclosed case, especially on an STI in the front diff. You put it in there, no one's ever going to see it again. So it's kind of a funny scenario.
Hard to showcase that, huh?
Yeah. And so I tried to document the installation as much as possible so that I could show that to people and let them understand, the diffs in the car. And that's all you can really do. Yeah. But yeah, it's kind of a little game you have to play. If you're not on the track, you still have to be working. And from what I've seen from other people and other teams, that's something that they tend to forget. When they don't go to the track, if we don't go to the track, we don't post, we don't do anything. We're gone. We're ghosts. What does that do for a sponsor? If you're ghosting, it doesn't do anything for them. They gave you those parts, or they gave you that labor, or they gave you money to showcase items for them or their business, or do whatever you can for them. I mean, you really have to understand and feel grateful from each of the sponsors. And let me tell you, it is very, very difficult. At the end of the day, you're never going to make everybody happy. It's just like in life. Mm-hmm. So you'll make this sponsor sticker bigger, and then the other sponsor goes, well, why is his sticker bigger than mine? And then you plug this guy, and then the other guy's going, well, where's my plug? And it's kind of an interesting game that you play and say, well, I'm going to. It's coming. There's a post coming. There's this coming. And obviously, we all understand that in today's day and age, it's social media. It's the greatest worst thing ever, because you can post something on Facebook, and no one will see it. Mm-hmm. It happens so fast. It goes so quick. Instagram, Twitter, all that stuff. It's so fast that you literally have to post so much just to keep people engaged and involved and understanding product, and that's where doing simple stuff like making sure that you're sharing what your sponsors are sharing. Just a quick example, Fuel Injector Clinic, they went to PRI, they made a video showcasing their injectors and some of their new products. They shared it on their page. I see it, I like it, which allows my friends to then see that post. And then what do? I also turn around and share it on my racing page so that people who follow my racing page can then see their post on their injectors. They might follow Fuel Injector Clinic, they might not, but that might lead them to Fuel Injector Clinic at a later date. So, anything that you can do for your sponsors and what they're doing for you, you should be doing it. I can't say it enough where I see guys, and in my opinion, they're part of the biggest problem with sponsorship in the automotive industry. They get parts, they get money, they get labor, and they don't do anything for that company after that.
Yeah, it's a give and a take. And,
absolutely.
And so your Facebook page is Jager Racing, and I've been following it for I think several years now. But you do post probably 3 times as much as I do with my shop. So you post a lot. You're very active it's amazing that you are really not doing this for money. You're doing it for, quite honestly, fun. It's a hobby. It's a racing team. But you take it so seriously. It's what has kind of impressed me with it. And you also have a web page, which is jagerracing.net. and I'm looking at it right now. It's it's got everything on here. You've got all your events that you're planning on doing. You got about all your sponsors. Everything's on here. So you've taken being a sponsored car to the next level, and I really think that this is what people need to look for as kind of a model race car. If you want to race, look at what you are doing, and this is something to follow. And so we kind of mentioned that this podcast and several others that I've done before and after are kind of geared towards sponsorship, and that's kind of the topic we're covering here. And you've already mentioned a few of them, but who else is sponsoring your car, and what do they do for you? Like, are they giving you a product? Are they giving you money? Are they giving you time?
For the most part, sponsorship in this industry and for what we're doing in Time Attack and for what I need is generally product. Per se, Borg Warner's been sponsoring us for the last 2 years now, and Full Race as well. So we're able to get turbos from them and be able to actually utilize their turbo with a quality manifold, so it's not going to crack and break all the time, and with all the kind of things that can happen between motors and so on and so forth, they happen. So for me, I was looking at building a motor, so I went into motor build mode, and so I went after scat crankshafts. I wanted to put a lighter weight crankshaft, so I went after scat crankshafts. JE pistons to gotta have the best piston. When I think of pistons, I think of JE pistons. So one thing that I absolutely did as well is I didn't go after sponsors that I didn't believe in, because I also have the firm belief that if you actually don't believe in the product, it's going to be that much more difficult to be sponsored by them and to represent them. That's where I've seen so many people take on sponsorships, and I literally have asked them, but why? Oh, well, because it's free. Well, if that radiator's no good, why get it then? Well, it's free. Well, but it's no good.
Right.
So, there's very interesting things like that. Like I said, with Lost Ark Liquids coming on this year, they were actually a very different sponsor than everybody else, because obviously they're not in the automotive industry. So they are in the vape community. They make vape juices.
Okay.
So that's something that is very unusual, especially for Time Attack, to have a sponsor that isn't actually automotive.
Unless it's Red Bull.
Well, and as you say that, that's kind of the model that they kind of follow. They're looking at it like that. It's a concept of, let's look at who actually uses our products and let's target them through their activities. Well, you walk through the paddock at a Time Attack event or a track day event, and I hate to say it like this, but it's been basically taken over by the vape community as well. 3/4 of my team vapes. So that kind of gives you an idea of what it is in the community. So
I think there's some running jokes on Facebook that it's a Subaru thing.
yes, and absolutely it is a Subaru thing.
So,
to give you another idea, something that I literally just received it today. Killer Bee Motorsports, they're jumping into the motor building game, and so in talks with them, going back and forth. It's about knowing what products a company's going to be pushing. It's about knowing what products are going to be coming out new, understanding their product lines, all that stuff. So Killer Bee said, hey, we have a motor that we're going to start building and we're going to start selling. Do you guys want to basically test it out / run it next year as part of our promotion? Well, we're already involved with Killer Bee for their oil pans and their pickups and their water necks and all sorts of other stuff. So absolutely, why not? Let's try it out, and we can give you definite feedback, testing, and we can basically give that bi-directional feedback to each other so that we can have a good working relationship.
So when you are looking for sponsors, are you looking specifically for a product? Like when you needed an engine, you're looking specifically for the engine people? Or do you just do you have a specific list of people you're looking for that you think will sponsor you? How do you kind of pick what you need and what you're looking for?
Well, I won't lie. In the past, it's been very much need oriented. We need to build, 2 engines, so I'm going to go after engine products. That's kind of been, the need has pushed where I need to look at. So
you need more power. You call Borg Warner, right?
Yeah, I mean, literally, we ran the 8374 last year, and we're like, well, because of the way the rules are run for the global, we might run unlimited. So how about we run a 9174 and a 9180 next year? So, why not go up to their 2 biggest EFRs and at the same time, now on my car alone, I've run a 6258, a 7163, an 8374, and we're probably going to run at the beginning of the year a 9174. So I've run 4 different EFR turbos, which is great for me because any Subaru guy, or any guy in general, can come up to me and ask about which turbo would you put on their car. And I can give them my personal understanding of how that turbo reacted and what the latency was, or I should say lack of latency, and the power figures. Because at the end of the day, I admit all the time, I'm a driver. I don't tune the car. I don't tune the suspension. I'm not the engine builder. I don't do those things. I wish I could do that all, but at the same time, I'm smart enough to understand that I can't do those things, and so I need to find people that are smart and that are capable and can do those jobs and do them 10 times better than me. And I actually think that that's probably one of the biggest things that's actually set my team apart from majority of other guys, because majority of other guys just have, nothing against them, but they have just themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes it that much harder. I mean, you understand, if you're driving the car and you pull into the pits and you got to check your own tire pressures and you got to check your own oil and you got to change everything and you got to swap wheels back and forth and check your rotors and check your brakes. By the time you get done, it's time to go back out. You had no time to review your lap. You had no time to think about your lap, and you had no time to rest. So after a 2-day event, you're driving home basically drunk, tired. Whereas when you have the help of others that are as smart as my guys are, it makes the world a difference. I look at one of the things I look at is Pro Awesome. Pro Awesome has an amazing team just like that, where each guy comes in, has all sorts of knowledge on individual things, and look what it does for them. I mean, 2 years in a row they've gone out and set the limited class record. I wouldn't be surprised if they go up to unlimited for next year and push it even farther and break that record there. So but yeah.
Do you have written contracts with your sponsors?
There are some. Some do require written contracts. I will say the majority of most do not, which I found very interesting in the very beginning, just because I look at it as, you're exchanging thousands of dollars worth of product or money or whatever. I was actually expecting more contracts. Oddly enough, I've had more contracts for less money than people that actually gave me more.
So the sponsors are supplying you with a contract. You don't have any what you are essentially saying what you're going to fulfill to them. They're giving you the contract?
Correct. For the most part, guys actually deliver the contract themselves. I will say that one of the big issues that I've actually run into is when you deal in verbal, it's very easy for them to forget. because they obviously deal with a lot of people. So what I always do is if you get in any type of verbal commitment, you always have them email the commitment, or you email them the actual commitment so they can email back with basically an I accept or I confirm that this is correct. Because without that, it's too easy to forget. And you want to make sure that everyone is satisfied at the end. I will say some of the biggest things that I've seen as flaws from other drivers, and even myself in the beginning, when you aren't actually putting down what you're giving back to them, that is a big problem. When their expectations are different than what your expectations are, but that is never communicated. And that's something that can lead to problems in the short and long term with the sponsors that you really have to address early on. So you really need to make them understand, like I said earlier, with 2015, I was stressing immensely because I guaranteed we were going to go to 10 track day, we were going to go to 10 events and race the car. And when you turn around and only race one, that's, to me, without a doubt, you have to really make sure that the sponsors understand it's not something that we're doing on purpose or anything of that nature. It's, we want to race. We want to go out there.
So what are some of the expectations the sponsors are giving you? I mean, are they wanting you, what kind of events are they wanting you to attend, and who decides that? Is that kind of you tell them what events you want to go to, or are they kind of asking you to bring it to? Like, because your car was at SEMA this year too, wasn't it?
It was at SEMA last year.
Oh, last year. Okay, that's okay.
Yeah, actually, interestingly enough, that's one of the funniest things. They don't necessarily do that. The way that it's generally done is they take the events that you're going to attend, and that is what the expectation is.
Okay. Which,
in a weird way, it's a pro and a con. I actually tell multiple sponsors, the higher tiered sponsors, I will actually tell them, if you have an event that you want me at, if you can tell me, with enough time frame, and if it's not in the same weekend as a race weekend, and I'll be there. I understand their level of commitment and what they're doing, so I have no problem in saying that's what that is, and let me bring my car and represent your company just like I would at the racetrack.
So have you ever talked to your sponsors and asked them if what you're doing is making a difference to them? Like, how do you know if what you're doing is bringing them business, I guess, like exposure that they is essentially what they're looking for, right?
Well, that's actually something that I can say I've never actually gotten a clear response on, which is weird. You would think that, you would hope that they would have some sort of idea of the return, but no. Something that actually frustrates me to no end, being someone who posts on the regular, who makes, so I spend hours creating videos or editing pictures or making sure to bring a good camera to capture excellent pictures so I can post them later on. It actually is the most frustrating thing in the world when you go through all that effort and send pictures or videos out to your sponsors and they don't even share them.
And we have experienced the same thing. So we run a car in the USCA event, and we have shared pictures, and the car's been on TV to sponsors, and it's the same sort of thing. Like, sometimes we get that information out and nobody does anything with it. And so it's kind of amazing that, it's really, I think you're kind of pointing out a big hole that people who are sponsoring cars, you need to use that exposure. Like, you are out there, you as a racer are out there exposing our products or people who are making the products. And we need to also, kind of amplify that. We need to take what you're doing and share it, and we need to take what you're doing and post it on our webpage or blog or whatever you're doing. That's a good way for us to show, both people are using this towards their advantage. So I guess this kind of leads me into how do you get into the how do you help get the word out about the events you are going to do? Is it you, or is the sponsors kind of like promoting yourself? I'm guessing it sounds like it's mostly you, right?
Absolutely. And that's again one of the there's Borg Warner does a pretty good job of it where we're kind of in constant contact, and they'll ask for my yearly event schedule, and they'll email me and say, hey, are you going to go to this event? Here's the post that we're going to make. Is this post okay to post? Some very few though, but I mean, I can count on one hand out of all the sponsors I have that will actually do that, which is interesting to me because I would have expected, okay, I know they're not it's not super lap battle every time I go out to the track, but at the same time, even events where we've gone and we're the fastest car of the day out of 60 plus cars, and then you share it because you're super excited about it and you want everybody in the world to know that you're the fastest out there, and then you kind of look and you're like, well, no one shared it, no one posted it, no, what's going on? Why? And then you kind of think, well, maybe they have it's scheduled, so it's scheduled like a few weeks from now, and then you just wait and wait and wait. But for the most part, it is just one of those things where you do understand essentially they're paying for you to do that job.
Yes, exactly.
You are the person that's supposed to be doing that. I am providing them with content. If they choose to use it, good. If they choose not, it's fine. As long as you are still doing that, I feel it's okay.
Yeah, that's a really good way of putting it. You are, and so that's what we kind of look at this at our shop now. Is if I'm sponsoring you, we look at it as a contract. You are becoming our employee almost to help get our name out. And so if you're the one attending the events and making all the content, it is then my responsibility to take your content and share it. It takes very little time for me to share it or to email blast people with updates of you and the shop, but like the work that you're putting into, right, making these videos, getting professional photographers out to events for you, like that takes time and money, and that you are putting in it, and we just need to take advantage of it. So
absolutely, and I think that's one of the frustrating aspects from my side of things is the amount of time and money and energy spent for those activities, and then when you don't see it being utilized, you kind of just you get a little frustrated, but you do understand. You are doing, I mean, even things, how Facebook is, where as a business or as a page, you're every time you share as a page, it's only going out to a percentage of your actual people that like your page. And so even as that, you have to understand that and say, okay, I'm going to boost this post by $20, and spend even more money so that you can ensure that exposure level is getting out to everybody who likes your page, or getting out to people who don't like your page at the moment, to increase your audience. So you have to do those things. I mean, if you're not, you're steps behind.
So do your sponsors provide you with like merchandise and things to hand out events, or do they come with you to events ever? Is it like we've kind of seen that before, where they'll hand you like a box of shirts to sell or something, or flyers to hand out. I don't know if Yumi Sport ever does that, or they're usually at the events with you, right?
Yeah. Paul is always at the events with us. So in essence, I kind of always feel bad for Paul because at any given track event, he probably has 5 to 10 cars that he's tuned at these events. So without a doubt, he's always working, because he'll either be on my car or someone else will be coming over and, oh, can you get me a little bit more power? Or, oh, something will happen, like my car is overheating. Can you help me? Anything from nothing to something. Mm-hmm. And so he's consistently busy when he's at the track. But other people, like, once again, Fuel Injector Clinic, they sent me one of their flags to fly. So, absolutely. If you're going to send me merchandise, or you're going to send me material that can be promotional items for you, absolutely. SubiFest, for instance, me and the team, we ran the Borg Warner booth at SubiFest. So we were able to help them out, so they didn't have to fly their people from Michigan to here to California to to actually work the booth. We were able to do that for you.
They just sent you a tent.
Yeah, they sent us a turbo tent and promotional items, catalogs, keychains, stuff like that to hand out to people and to do that, and so that's what we did.
So you're literally working for them, and as a sponsor, you're literally working for them. That's pretty cool.
Absolutely. And that's how I always envision it. One thing that I consistently ask sponsors all the time is there anything else I can do for you? And to me, that's because I should always be. If I have any expectation, as I had to do recently, as we're doing a new motor build, I had to call JE and say, hey, we're doing another motor build. I need another set of pistons and a set of their JE Pro Seal head gaskets. Okay, that's fine. But, you also have to look at, well, if you didn't do anything for them prior, why would they feel compelled to help you then? So, that's why you can't wait until you need something to ask, to try to do something for them. You have to have that consistency. It's I don't know how many times, like you said, you follow my page. I don't know how many times I posted about engine builds and take block pictures and this and that and all sorts of other stuff. But every single time, whenever there's a picture of the pistons or the block, you're tagging, JE Pistons. You're tagging Fuel and Jet Clinic. You're tagging each one of these people. Mm-hmm. To make sure that they understand that you appreciate what they're giving to you and are able to give back to them. I mean, one thing that actually happened to us this year, so we had heads kind of, I don't know how to describe it, but they disappeared. So we had a set of heads that SoCal Porting had done all their port work and done for us, and but yeah, so I had to get another set of heads done, and at the same time, if I'm not supporting him and I'm not helping him as a business, why would he help me back? So, things like that really come into play. It's like what I said earlier when we did the fuel cell with Pyrotech. One of the reasons why we went with Pyrotech is because of Pyrotech's relationship with Aeromotive. We parlayed that relationship. I mean, granted, I still paid for my fuel cell, but because of the construction, how they integrate the Eliminator fuel pump into their fuel cell, it made all the sense in the world. Why not utilize a company that utilizes the company that we're sponsored by, so that it can all make sense and be cohesive, and they make a great product. So why not?
So you're running an 06 STI, right? 06?
Correct.
That was just a car that you had kind of purchased and enjoyed racing and using it since then. Has that been a problem to you, racing an older generation car with like the newer STIs out? Like, do people want to sponsor newer cars, or is it not a problem for you even running an 06?
So in running the 06 STI in comparison to, per se, running a 2015 STI, I do think there's a disadvantage there. I think a newer STI is more marketable, especially as new products come to market. They're looking for cars to put them on so that they can then promote them in magazines and on their different social media aspects. But I will say the benefit for me is being the fact that a Subaru, generally, they still use the same EJ257 motor that's been in them for years and years and years. So motor components are basically all the same. White line per se, it's synonymous with Subarus and parts that are going on. So someone with an 06 STI or Subaru can correlate, or someone with a 2015 STI can look at my car and say, white line, his car, white line, it still correlates the same. Guys like my composites guy, Wasp Composites, for him, it's difficult because in weird ways, it's better to use an older car, because how many guys who have a 2015 STI
Are racing them?
want to go rip them? Because Wasp makes very performance-oriented products with splitters, hoods, trunks, all that stuff. So there's not very many people that are kind of tearing up those cars yet and cutting them to bits. So the market is a little bit better for the older generations. But yeah, I mean, for the most part, I'm kind of in that lucky group where a lot of the parts are transferable between different aspects, or the market share is still there so that it makes sense. But without a doubt, I do believe that a newer car would generate new sponsorship opportunities easier.
So are you looking to develop products from the racing? Like, do sponsors come to you and use your car as a test bed? Like, do they want to make new products from your car? Is that kind of something you kind of see, even with it being an '06?
Well, I will say, like, going back with Wasp Composites, basically, we use my car as a test bed to make the hood and the trunk and make sure everything fit properly and worked out well. Other people, I'm trying to think. Well, here's a pretty good one. My buddy, who actually assembles my motors, he actually kind of parlayed the business off of my business, essentially. So he built a company, Flat Performance, building engines, out of Jager Racing, and used his experience. He's obviously building other motors. I wouldn't just let anybody just start building my motors. But he's been building motors, and in that sense, so he was able to utilize his experience from before and then go into what we're doing. And since we're kind of pushing it to such extremes, he's able to kind of take that and learn from those experiences. And I'll say the exact same goes for other companies as well, like GSC. GSC Power Division, they make the cams. They just came out this year with billet cams. Mm-hmm. I felt terrible, actually, though, because I was expecting to get like kind of one of the first sets of their billet cams, and I was hoping to put them in the car and run them and be able to give them a good review and everything would be great. But for obvious reasons, that couldn't happen because the car didn't run. So at the same time, we kind of go back and forth with different companies. We provide a lot of feedback to Borg Warner and Full Race. And actually, one of the biggest people that are actually gaining from the racing would be Gimme Sport, would be Paul Lung himself. Because, without a doubt, a tuner at the shop tuning every day, you learn things every day, mm-hmm. without a doubt. Paul's kind of renowned in the Subaru world as being one of the best tuners out there. And, don't let that go to your head, Paul. But absolutely going to the track and actually seeing the different variances that he's able to see at the track and how we push the car and then what he could do to tweak it, make it softer here, or, boost a little bit different there, or these little tweaks that he can do, he can then come back to the shop, and when he's tuning the next, stage 2 STI, he can incorporate those things. And so he can learn from those experiences and give a better tune to someone who's looking to race their 06 STI stage 2, or someone else who's doing the same exact turbo setup that I am. So there's definitely some pros and cons, all pros essentially, to him being there every time we hit the track.
Other than it taking a lot of time. That's your con, right?
Yeah, I will say Paul himself, he doesn't get a lot of sleep. He is by far one of the people that is needed all the time. From the moment that we step out of the truck to unload to the moment we pack back up, he's in a constant state of motion. So it's invaluable. His skill set and his time on the car, because we all know Paul as a tuner, but he also fabricates everything on the car. So from wing mount to the wheel tubs that we did, to even putting the fender flares on, or building a little box for something, or doing this little he does all of it. So he is by far one of the people on the team that we can't do without him.
Okay.
So, big kudos to Paul for putting up with all of us, and considerably always needing his help doing anything or everything.
So exposure, that's like what being a sponsored car is you're looking for. Are you measuring it in any way, or are you looking for that? Is that something that you are, like, when you get to a big company, they use a number of eyes that see a particular ad in a magazine, or how many people are subscribed to your YouTube channel or something. How are you measuring exposure, and is that something your sponsors look for?
Measuring exposure, I would say that it is something that I've continually tried to just keep increasing. I don't think that, as much as some have cared, I mean, I've definitely been turned down by people under the assumption that there's just not enough people caring about what I'm doing, essentially. But at the same time, for the most part, for what companies actually have to give you, their gain is substantially greater. For what they would have to, if you took that same amount of money in product or in just dollars and had to find a way to get as much exposure as I'm providing them with, I personally believe it would easily be 3 to 4 times as much money.
Yeah, so a great example would be you being in the D-Sport calendar, right? Like, so if I wanted to be in there, how much would that cost me to advertise with D-Sport, right? I already know, like, being on just a single page ad, they're in the many thousands of dollars, right? So your car being plastered on a month of the calendar is a lot of exposure, and so a lot of people get that catalog. So that's something like, to a sponsor that they can take advantage of. They don't actually have to buy the ad. They put it on a car that does well, or sponsor a person that can get the car on that calendar.
Exactly. And I mean, for one of the things that I was able to utilize to my advantage, it's kind of a weird scenario where you have to go so far to get to this point. But I mean, we were on the cover of D Sport, and then we were also in 2 other magazines throughout 2014. So, like you said, I mean, you're talking about, I mean, oddly, in 2012, I randomly ended up in Import Tuner. I mean, that was kind of a weird way to start it out. I mean, it wasn't anything great, but at the same time, just with that, you're able to say, hey, I was in a magazine. I had exposure within a magazine. Mm-hmm. And that does carry some sort of clout within the marketing aspect, because there is, like you said, a dollar value that is represented there that then they can look at and say, well, this guy has done well enough where he's able to get provided those type of things back to us. And I will say, on the flip side of that, when people actually look at what event that they want to run in a given year, that's something that they look at. If I can go to X event, if I can go to Global Time Attack, and if I do well, if I can get in Super Street Magazine, what is that worth to me? Those types of attributes within the sponsorship application, they definitely hold some sort of bearing that you have to think about.
Let's kind of shift directions here. So we kind of went into the sponsorship stuff pretty good. Do you have a 1 or 5 year plan for racing? I know you kind of mentioned that you'd like to go into ARCA or Pirelli World Challenge or something like that, but what is your 1 or 5 year plan for racing?
That is the big problem that I actually have for myself. Because I would love to say my 1 year plan would be to start going wheel-to-wheel racing and really start getting proficient so that I could build myself up to those levels because obviously you can't go from Time Attack directly to a Continental Tire Series. That's, if you think that, sorry. So there's definitely something that I'm looking for. I kind of played a little bit of games where I was trying to figure out a way to find a seat in somebody else's car, doing some endurance racing. I mean, I know that it's not the biggest and it's not the best way to start or whatever, but even Lemons or, Chump Car, something like that. That's what I was looking at doing to try to graft my way into that, because I won't lie, all my money's tied up in the Time Attack scene. I can't take what I don't have and go buy another car and build it for wheel to wheel. Now, if I in 2 years, and I'm kind of hoping in like 2-3 years, that might be a possibility. I might be able to go and get another car, and it won't be a Miata Max. It'll be a Civic or something like that. Who knows? And that way I can go wheel to wheel racing and still keep everything else and have a good time with it. But yeah, I definitely want to. That's definitely on the horizon. That's what I keep thinking about. But like I said before, I also feel that you have to kind of deserve it. You have to go out there and show yourself. It's kind of interesting. I was talking to a couple of Chump Car teams last year about going. I was gonna fly back east and run in one series out there. One of the things that they actually were worried about is because I was a Time Attack driver. They were worried I was basically going to go out and kill the car in 2 laps, and they were going to end up fixing it all night, And the obvious is I've done an absorbent amount of just driving in general, and well, let's be honest, I do own a Subaru, and so you do have to have that mechanical sympathy and just have the ability to say, I need to limp this in, I need to take this back. A prime example would be at Super Lap. Literally finish the lap, checking my gauges as I go down the straightaway, noticing oil pressure not being the greatest, and shutting the car down so that it didn't completely ruin the motor. Just having the ability to understand those things and report back to the team so they understand the situation as well. Mm-hmm. So you try to hone your skills as best you can, and all the time I try to buy racing books, read as much as possible, so that I can just have a better understanding of everything. Right now I'm actually reading a motorsports fitness book, just to have a better, because I really do want to go do some endurance racing, and I'd love to go do it this year. So if you have any inkling of doing that,
what's the name of the book?
Off the top of my head, I can't tell you. But it is literally motorsports fitness. It's like a motorsports fitness manual or something like that. Okay. But yeah, I looked at it and I go, if I have any thought of going and doing any type of endurance racing, the last thing I want to do is show up to a team to go endurance racing, and halfway through, I'm worthless. I wouldn't do that to a team. So I know that I needed to get my endurance up. I know I needed to get my strength up. So that's what I've been doing. And I won't lie, it's also hard because at the same time, I'm also still going to school to get a business degree, and that's taking forever. So there's all these things that play in. My week is not exactly the easiest week, and I don't have the hardest life in the world either, but it's working anywhere from 8 to 12 hours a day, and then going to school for another 4 hours a day, and then trying to squeeze in working out, and then obviously you also have to deal with all your personal matters, so you have all that stuff, and then trying to get on the phone and get in contact and work on car stuff, and through all the posting and everything that I do, it does take a lot of time to reply back to each individual person that's asking questions, people that are asking questions about what event are you going to this year, or what did you think of that turbo when you ran it, or just anything and everything. And so, there's actually been times where a guy that friended me on Facebook was dealing with one of my sponsors and has actually contacted me to help alleviate a situation that they were having with them, because all the time it's communication. Communication is one of the biggest problems that everyone tends to have. So if you can kind of step in and kind of smooth it over and make some understanding happen, hey, it makes it a better situation for everybody. So, but yeah, and then on top of that, then obviously I have my wife, and trying to keep her happy, because obviously going to school, working out, going to work, and working on the car all the time, you got to have some time for her as well. So
give us an action item, like something we can take away from this that people can do to improve their situation. So talk to either sponsorees or sponsors. What's something we can do to like make this whole industry better?
After every event, no matter what, if you completely lose, your car completely blows up, you do nothing, I would expect still a status report coming back to them. That's something that you have to do. You've got to make sure that you disseminate that information.
Communicating what's going on, what the expectations are, is what you're saying. And it's a really good one to take. And it's actually one of the other interviews we did with Jimmy Day. He is a marketing firm. He actually basically said the same thing. It's a pretty important thing, and that's something they look for in their sponsors. So that's a good one to take.
Yeah, I mean, communication to me by far is the biggest lack thereof between sponsors, everybody. That is the biggest problem. And to me, it's the most interesting, because we have so many ways to communicate, whether it be text, whether it be phone calls, whether it be emails, whether it be Facebook. We have all these different forms of communication, and yet there consistently is a problem. There's a gap there. And that's why, like I said, I've literally sat down and I've called every single one of my sponsors. Take a week and call every sponsor and make sure that you're fulfilling everything you did, everything you needed to do for them. They're happy. If they need anything else, if they're looking for anything else, it takes a lot of time. And don't, even though their phone number, let me tell you, they don't answer the phone every time either. So
okay, so
yeah.
let's move on to the quick answer questions. Tell us about a game-changing product you've seen in the last year.
Well, in the last year, I would probably say the Swan-neck wing from APR. That's something that is definitely catching on fire in the time attack community. I mean, it's been around for a while now in like DTM and stuff like that, but it's never really been readily available to, I guess, common people like us. And now that it has, I mean, it's super lap. I want to think there was probably, well, I know for a fact the top 3 in limited all-wheel drive all ran an APR 1000
Same wing.
Swan-neck wing.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of gives you an idea, the aerodynamic factor. So yeah.
So Mark, what software program are you using daily?
Well, basically I use a couple of different programs, but one thing that we integrated for 2015 was a piece from AM Electronics, which is our AQ1 data logging software. It also has hardware, obviously, that it goes inside the car, but it's going to allow us to actually gather data from different sensors throughout the car, and then using the software when we come back to it, it's very, I don't want to say the word complex, but it has a very good user interface that allows you to have multiple sensors and then overlay that on GPS data and really fine-tune what you're looking to get out of the car. That's actually an instrument that we're going to go into the 2016 season really excited to actually fine-tune. Obviously, only racing with the car one time didn't really allow us to get a great influx of information from it. So we are really looking forward to it for next season. But yeah, the AM Electronics, the AQ1, and the software that goes along with it is just a great software and hardware combination that really allows a person in, I don't want to say the lower levels of racing, but in the grassroots style of racing, it really allows you to gather an enormous amount of data and in a user-friendly application.
Cool. So what's a favorite app that you use daily? Is there anything on your phone you use a lot?
Without a doubt, I have to say Facebook and Facebook pages and Instagram. Those, if they could play a little bit nicer, it'd be a little better. You know, Instagram doesn't like you to manage multiple accounts, so that becomes rather a headache. I toyed with the notion of actually having a personal Instagram account and my Jager Racing Instagram account, but being it's such a headache to actually manage them both, I just opted for just one.
What's your favorite shop tool?
I'm going to go with a hammer on this one. It seems to fix everything, in my opinion. It's just, oddly, with me, it's either a sawzall or a cutting wheel or a hammer. I wouldn't say I have a very light touch when it comes to fixing things, so I'm usually the guy they go to last. Hey, we need this cut off or hit off or, you know, something like that.
And so what are you driving daily?
Well, actually, I'm driving a 2003 Ford Ranger two-door pile of goodness.
The parts hauler, right?
Yeah, well, I always tell people this. As car guys, what do we all tend to do? We tend to modify everything. So back in the day, I used to have a 91 Honda Civic, and I had my STI. Well, the problem then I had was I'd modify them both, putting myself in even more debt. So I found out really soon that you just had to have a vehicle. Obviously, you still take care of it, maintain it, do all the other fun stuff. But I'm going to go with a vehicle that you just drive. You put tires on it, you drive it to and fro, you change the oil on it, and that's all you do.
All right.
And that's something that I ended up doing. I've actually, oddly, I've owned 3 Ford Rangers.
I drive a Tundra, so that's my daily.
Well, see, I have the tow vehicle, which is now a Dodge diesel.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I wanted to be able to keep the miles off the tow rig and just only use it really when I need to use it, and you know, that type of thing.
Okay.
Keeps the cost down there. And obviously my little Ranger that's a 4-cylinder manual transmission, you know you're getting 26, 27 miles to the gallon on it, so not too shabby.
Cool. So what do you think the future of automotive performance is going to be, Mark?
Well, that's something I kind of toy with all the time, because I always like to think of it as what we do at the racetrack has an influence in the performance market, and what we figure out and what we test and what we tune and play with all has implications on what's going to come out next year. I like to think of it like that because I like to think of myself as being that important. But the market itself, it's interesting. I feel like cars such as the FRS BRZ, the new Miata, those cars are coming out, which is reminiscent of low horsepower, high handling characteristics. But at the same time, we still have all of our American tendencies saying we need more horsepower. So I don't know, to be honest with you. It's a thing where I think we as an American society, at least, we like to modify everything and anything. So I think as long as in the automotive market, as long as we're given that opportunity, that's what we're going to continue to do. Obviously, coming off of the recession, where we saw a lot of businesses fail and a lot of things happen such as that, now it's definitely on the upward swing. People can say what they want, but it's definitely, from what I've seen and the money being tossed around here and there, it's definitely on an upward swing, and the economy's moving. So
Mark, how do we connect with you and your racing team?
Well, you can connect with us on basically any form of social media. Being the best is Instagram or Facebook. Just search Jager Racing, and you'll find us there. You can also go onto our website at jagerracing.net. Tend to try to keep everything as updated as possible. Just try to give you guys as in-depth of an idea of what we're doing. We actually were just toying around with the idea the other day, kind of something that's been around for a little while, obviously, on YouTube, but they do live feeds off YouTube.
Oh, right. Like a Periscope is the same sort of thing, right?
Exactly. And that's something I was looking at as well, was with Periscope for our race days, is being able to connect our fans to a Periscope page and be able to just show it live. And that kind of came from the idea from Global Time Attack and how they were doing the racecast. So
I watched it.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, the events I wasn't able to attend, I was watching as well. So, and it always intrigues me, because something to me, the racing is awesome. I love watching racing, the whole nine. But I also love watching what's going on in the pits and how people are handling their issues and problems and things that are going on. And just, the little banter that goes along with all of that as well. So that's something I'm really hoping to kind of bring about more into this season, and bring a little bit more insight to our fans.
Cool. Well, for everybody listening, you can check him out at Jager Racing on Facebook, and I've looked at it. He updates it all the time. And check out his webpage. He's got all kinds of information on there as well. So thanks for talking with us, Mark.
All right. Thank you, Kevin.
Thanks for listening to Do It for a Living. You can find out more about this guest, this show, and even details about what we just talked about at our website, doitforaliving.net. Check out the Facebook page at facebook.com/doitforaliving and tell us who you want to hear from. And most importantly,